Conservative New Media viewers, this is Paul F. Villarreal, and myself and JDV are now ready to react and analyze tonight's second presidential debate of 2012 between President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney that took place tonight at Hofstra University in Long Island, New York, and was moderated by Candy Crowley of CNN. I'll just first kind of set up, see what JDV has to say by this. He's joining us by phone. He just checked out the debate himself. And so, John, what did you think about what you saw tonight? How do you think Candy Crowley did? What do you think happened? Who won, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, hey, Paul. First of all, I'm joined by phone. I was at an event, a debate watching party in Miami, so I'm on the road back. And I'll say this, all personal opinion only, we're not alleging facts, not casting any spurs, all for entertainment purposes only. Please check the disclaimers. Paul, I think you bring up some good issues there. This is the third debate here in this, presidential, vice presidential debate series. And it's the third debate in a row, meaning all of them, in which the Democrat or the administration spoke longer than the Romney-Ryan Republican challenger ticket. In this case, the total time, I believe, was, if I'm remembering correctly, was something over 44 minutes for President Obama to Romney's 40 minutes. So, it continues this trend of the administration getting more time, and, you have to, in my personal opinion, why is that? What's going on? That seems, I'll let that, speak for itself. And ask the audience of what they think about that. Now, additionally, I would say this. Candy Crowley, I thought, did a pretty reasonable job. I didn't like that she kind of jumped in and sort of cut Governor Romney off on Libya, but I thought that was a very important issue and question. And I thought, frankly, given what's going on in Libya and the news report situations, I would have liked to have seen that question a bit earlier. But let's put those process issues and moderator reviews aside. I think totally overall, in my personal opinion, I think that on debating points, and I want to clarify what I mean by that. When I'm talking about debating points, is just on the not stylistic, but just on the sort of fundamental points of debate as it might be seen, as my perception of how it might be seen or perceived by the quote-unquote undecided voter. Who would they think won on the substance of what was said in debate? I think that's probably kind of even, in my personal opinion. And, now, that being said, now, that doesn't mean that I believe that the debate was even on the substance, but obviously I'm a political professional and a media and political expert, and, I'm very conservative, so, I have my own point of view on that. But let's put that aside. On putting past all of that, on the total net effect, in my personal opinion, of this debate is plus Romney, and here's why. I think that President Obama's answer on Libya raised a lot of questions. I think that most people that follow the Libya situation, in my personal opinion, understand or might have some awareness that, in my personal opinion, the administration was, at first coming out, repeatedly talking about videotape, talking about spontaneous protest. There was all this type of stuff. I mean, we've been learning things more and more as it comes out, and then, for President Obama to stand up there and say, I take responsibility, and, well, if you take responsibility, why didn't you have a statement on it? Why didn't you go on the Sunday shows? Why is, the UN ambassador, why, out there on the Sunday shows, what is our UN ambassador have anything that, is directly to do with this stuff? It just raised a lot of questions, and again, we kept hearing the tape, we kept hearing demonstrations, we kept hearing all that type of stuff, instead of talking about the request for security and that it was a terrorist attack. So I think that upon further review, if you will, in the coming days by media and commentators, I think that's going to create some potential issues for the president. And look, here's the thing. If, in my personal opinion, if the American people decide upon reviewing what was said and all that, that maybe the administration hasn't been as forthcoming or completely straight with them or whatever, I think that's going to hurt President Obama in this campaign. I think that's something where, that may have the American people, that may show up in terms of this, again, on the election, in terms of this campaign. So that, I think, creates problems going forward for President Obama. Also, stylistically, I think that people, and as we talked about, and I know you'll speak on this soon, I think people could see, Governor Mitt Romney was very strong again this debate, very consistent. I think he came off as very knowledgeable. I think you could see a real command of the facts. And for me, and again, I have a point of view, I'm conservative, I'm biased on that way, I guess. Stylistically, it seemed more like President Obama was delivering lines. It was almost like it felt more like a speech. It felt more like sort of acting, whereas Governor Mitt Romney seemed like he had more command of the facts, was more directly answering questions. And I feel like the net impression may come off that Governor Mitt Romney is just maybe more competent, ready to go and do his job. And as Governor Romney said, one of his lines, I believe, was, look, if President Obama's policies would work, things would be better right now. And that, I think, is at the end of the day, is the biggest issue for President Obama and his administration in the campaign, which is there's a record now. This is no longer 2008 open change. There's a record. There's 4 years. What has worked? What hasn't worked? We just saw another example here of foreign policy. Quite frankly, my personal opinion, a failure in Libya. And obviously, there's, President Obama has had some foreign policy successes, but I think when you add up the totality of the president's record, this administration's record, I don't think it's a great record at all. And in fact, we saw, I think, at least one, if not two, undecided voters who came up who said, that they had voted for President Obama before, at least one had, and maybe I'm remembering incorrectly now, Paul, but I think there was a sentiment, at least from one voter, if not more, that, they were disappointed. And they hoped that things would be better. So I think, in terms of debating points for an undecided voter of, my theoretical undecided voter, maybe about even, I think net effect of this debate, positive for Romney, and I think that continues the momentum for Romney. Clearly not as positive in terms of the delta, the difference between Governor Romney's performance and President Obama's performance as the first debate. I don't think anything's going to move the numbers as strong as that much anymore. And I'm not totally sure if this will or won't move the numbers, but I think it creates this larger narrative, larger tapestry, and continues the momentum for Governor Romney. And I think that President Obama needs something dramatic to change the narrative of the race right now, and I don't think that's happened. In fact, I think that there are additional questions for the administration going forward, particularly in regards to Libya. So that's what I think, Paul.
Okay, yeah, look, I agree with a lot of what you said there, a lot of it. And one of the things to me with Libya is that I think that President Obama is not in a good place on this issue, period. I believe that it came out today through the Associated Press that President Obama, I believe, is looking at options at possible strikes against potential militants or groups that may have been involved in the 9/11/12 terrorist attack. But unlike the situation with Osama bin Laden, this attack happened on President Obama's watch, whereas obviously 9/11, the original, happened on President Bush's watch. So you're in a situation now where, to me, even if you go and some special forces or some other people were to capture or kill certain individuals that may or may not have been involved in this, it almost is like, I think politically or in terms of the election, it's almost like you're focusing on your own failure. so to speak. It's like, well, yeah, this happened, and this is the first time that a U.S. ambassador has been killed by an attack since 1979. So it's like, I think in some ways he's almost darned if he does, darned if he doesn't. But I know that people want to hear about it. And so it's like I thought that that President Obama did about as well as he could have stylistically when Libya was brought up tonight. I know, and our viewers know, I have already put up a video where the Republican National Committee chairman has said that President Obama lied tonight about Libya. I can't sit here and say whether he lied or didn't. I don't know. But I think there are questions there. And I'm not sure that even with what President Obama said tonight about Libya, that those questions are going to go away. In fact, they might increase based upon the initial reactions. Now, what you said about the debate being a net positive for Mitt Romney, the first reaction I saw on TV from voters, not from some of the pundits, but from some of the voters, was a Frank Luntz focus group immediately after. And I was actually quite surprised because it was almost like to these people, or to many of them, maybe there was a group of 30 or so, it's almost like tonight solidified that they were going to vote for Mitt Romney. And what I think you said is right, which is this showed that the first debate was no fluke. Governor Romney has depth and command of the facts. He is a clear alternative, I believe, to what the past 4 years have been. And I think that there will be some people, and Britt Hume mentioned this, that will score tonight's debate on points for President Obama. But it is almost like it's if anything, it's like locked down Mitt Romney standing as the front runner or something. So it's amazing. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it was a good point. I mean, I'll put you and the viewers as simply as this. It's like, if you're hiring somebody for a job, based upon what you saw tonight and maybe what you saw in the first debate, who would you hire?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you see what I'm saying? So it's like Governor Romney seems like someone who's prepared, who's steady, who's intelligent. If you're trying to hire somebody, and in some degrees, obviously voting is kind of like a hiring decision, right? The government for your elected official, who would you hire? And I feel like Governor Romney kept making simple, but I think effective points in certain spots, which were, look, if the policy worked, things would be better. Why didn't, and also on immigration. You promised you would do that in your first year. You had, majorities of Democrats in the Senate and the House of Representatives. You didn't do it, and it's just basic, simple, fundamental logic that I think is powerful and makes a point. And I mean, you can't. It's very difficult for the Obama campaign to basically get away from the Obama record. And I think that we're, again, engaged in a real-time situation where the American people can judge the response, the policy, and the competency, and perhaps even the forthrightness of this administration in regards to Libya.
Yeah.
And it's at a certain point, words are not enough. You know what I mean? And you have to see what is the real policy? What is the reaction? I think Governor Romney looked like he was in tremendous command of issues ranging from healthcare, competitiveness of the American, tax system, Dodd-Frank, the Keystone Pipeline. He just went on and on and on. Immigration, I think Governor Romney, gave a very interesting and strong answer on that. I mean, there was a preparedness, whether you agree with all the policies or not. And Governor Romney's tax policy, again, we saw this. Well, and that was great. Governor Romney had a line in there where President Obama was sort of attacking, in my personal opinion, Governor Romney's tax plan. It's just $7 trillion, $8 billion, $8 trillion. And Governor Romney came back and like, okay, no, it's not playing. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to lower rates. We're going to do this. So again, sort of redux of the first debate. But Governor Romney also, punctuated it at some point in there, and I don't have my notes with me as I'm driving, but it was at some point Governor Romney said something to the effect of, "Look, President Obama has had 4 years of $1 trillion plus deficits.
Yeah.
So he can say everything all he wants. He's actually run up the deficit, a significant amount."
Yeah. Well, and I thought that was also interesting in that exchange was not only did he say he's had several years of deficits, his projected budgets have even more deficits.
Right. And so it's like if you want 4 more years of the same, you can vote for President Obama. And that's the problem. It's like, in my personal opinion, the actual performance, competency, and record of this administration is politically very difficult to run on, and I don't think it's something that America likes. And then, so I think that people personally like President Obama in terms of the polls and America and stuff like that. But I think that some of that likability may have been a little diminished tonight by the way President Obama was acting and interrupting and some of the mannerisms, again following up with Vice President Biden's performance. Is that how? I mean, I have questions, and you talked about Frank Luntz's focus group. How is that going to play with the independents?
Yeah.
And the undecided voters.
Well, it's an interesting question. I know that Megyn Kelly of Fox News said, "Look, as a woman, I know that women don't like bullies." And you had a lot of that going on tonight, and I agree with you, and that might not have helped the president. And one of the things that we both said and we both agreed on was, to me, when President Obama was speaking tonight, it was almost like he was like in a play or something. It's almost like he had a performance voice. It didn't sound to me like he was talking to whoever asked the question. It was like he was performing in front of 20,000 people, whereas I felt that Mitt Romney's was more personal, more kind of a controlled voice that I personally found was more appropriate or worked better in the setting. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'll say this. I felt like President Obama was more. I mean, of course they're both politicians. Of course they're both trying to score political points. There's no doubt about that, in my personal opinion. But I felt like President Obama, in my opinion, was more focused, like you said, on the performance rather than actually answering the questions and actually discussing policy and being responsive to the questions. I felt like maybe President Obama seemed, in my personal opinion, to be more focused on, at least my impression, on scoring political points, again, answering the actual questions. And Governor Mitt Romney just seemed much more prepared. He seemed much more responsive. He seemed much more confident, quite frankly, in terms of being ready for the debate and answering the questions and being responsive to the questions and having an actual plan and having actual details that he was ready to lay out. Rather than, hey, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to interrupt, or I'm going to stand up, or I'm going to smile, or I'm going to sit a certain way, or whatever it may be. And I have no idea that anyone's thinking this, and I'm not alleging anyone's thinking this. But again, the mannerisms and the style and the speaking and and what was said seemed much more, as you said, like an actor in a play. It seemed like a performance. It seemed like an affectation. Yeah. It seemed like a conscious effort. Whereas Mitt Romney, and again, both these candidates prepared a lot. They're getting closer. So, both that. But it seemed like Governor Romney was, prepared on the issues and was answering on that matter a lot more substantively, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that what you said is right. And one of the women in the focus group for Frank Luntz said that President Obama seemed defensive. And I agree with that. I'm not going to say, look, many people felt after his first debate performance that he needed to be stronger or more forceful or whatever. And I agree. I think that's true. He did need to do that. he did that tonight, but it might have been turned up a little bit too much. And you and I both talked about Joe Biden and his performance, which a lot of people critiqued on the style and the smirking and stuff. And I just thought there was, as you said, a little too much affectation or premeditated conflict or conflictual attitude. And I don't know if that's going to work for a lot of people in the middle. I don't think it will.
Let me put it to you like this. Honestly, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think we can boil down this debate to three simple points. One, Governor Mitt Romney looks competent, fit, ready to be president, and does not look scary. And, so whatever ads or Democratic talking points, all that millions of dollars they spent on him, I think gets blown away. People see Mitt Romney now twice. I think that the American people are getting more and more comfortable with him. I think he's looking like, someone that can be president that the American people are fine with. So I think the stature gap has been erased. If there ever was one, I think that people are comfortable with it. I think that attempts to demonize Romney or his plan or whatever fell flat. I think Romney humanized himself. I think he connected. I think he all that. So that's number one. Number two, I think that, President Obama and this administration has a tough record to run on, and I don't think I've heard anything in the first debate, the vice president's debate, or this debate as to how the next 4 years are going to be definitively and specifically drastically different than what we've already seen. And that, I think, is a huge problem because people, as much as they might like President Obama, I don't think the American people want 4 more years of the economic performance and administration performance that they've already seen. Contrast that to Governor Romney, who has some plans, tax plan, immigration plans, different things he's laying out. And it's like, maybe not in complete specifics, obviously. We could use more specifics there too. But there's enough there where it's, look, these are things I would do differently. Keystone Pipeline, Dodd-Frank, China, energy policy, immigration policy, tax reform, repealing Obamacare. It's a different direction.
I thought that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought that the best instance of the night was when the African American man, Michael Jones, asked President Obama, "Look, I voted for you in 2008," and basically he was expressing that he wasn't particularly enthusiastic about voting for him again, and why have you earned my vote again? And as you mentioned, that's difficult to defend, I think, for President Obama. And I think a lot of Obama voters might feel the same way that Michael Jones feels.
Right. And the stylistic stuff, and likability, we could talk about that, but let's stipulate that maybe that's a little bit on the margin. And, so maybe that's the fourth point. But the third big point from this debate is on the Libya thing. If the news media, if President Obama's statements tonight, they were strong statements, don't match up with the facts, and people see that, and the news media runs with that creates problems going forward.
And let me just say on that, because I think that's a great point. Immediately after that, Greta Van Susteren was on right after the debate, and then they also showed Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity was running clips, multiple clips, of when President Obama was doing kind of his, I don't know what you want to call it, talk show tour, The View and some other shows, where days after, not the day after, but days after, like a week after, or 10 days after the 9/11/12 in Libya, a terrorist attack, he was asked directly, was this a terror attack? And he's like, I don't know. So it's like, how can you say that you said it on day one after the event, but then you're saying you didn't know or you weren't sure like a week later? And what you said is right. It's almost like a kind of a putting yourself into a trap, because if that doesn't hold up and it doesn't look like it'll hold up, well, then what do you do?
And that's what I'm talking about, because then you have a much bigger problem on Purple being involved. Not only as real and substantive questions of performance of this administration been raised, but if you have serious issues of forthrightness and veracity and and perhaps honesty of this administration with the American people, I think the American people could react pretty strong into that in the election.
Yeah, you know what? And let me just buttress off of that point. What happened today, or actually happened last night, and you saw the after effects of it tonight, I believe, in the debate, was that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton stepped up, the first person, I believe, of the administration to step up and say, you know what? I take responsibility for what happened in Benghazi. It's my thing. It falls on me. And a lot of people today were saying, oh, Hillary Clinton fell on her sword. She, whatever. But then I think it put President Obama in the position tonight where he had to take responsibility. And there's been kind of some chatter going on that he was trying to avoid responsibility. And maybe he and his advisors wanted to kind of say, well, yeah, it was the State Department's issue, perhaps more so than us because state's in charge of the security. But tonight, he had to, it's almost like I thought that he had to kind of answer what Hillary Clinton said. He said, no, it's up to me. Well, then, like you said, like with the statement about what you may or may not have said one day after, now you're kind of, you're almost putting yourself into a trap.
Let me put it to you like this, Paul. Let me put it to you like this, in very, very simple terms. Hillary Clinton, the last 2 days, looks like a leader, and in my personal opinion, President Obama looks like just another politician.
I'll tell you something else on that same point. What I have read today around the internet on various sites is that I have seen female Democrats saying that they think Hillary's the leader and they don't like the fact that she's taking the blame here and President Obama is not. So my concern, if I were the Obama campaign, is, are you going to lose fans and supporters of Hillary Clinton, of course, the famous Pumas, because of what's happening here, and because Hillary Clinton may have seemed to stand up and take accountability on the Libyan terrorist attack before you did? I think maybe that's why he had to say what he said tonight.
Well, I think after what what Secretary of State Clinton said, and in my personal opinion, the leadership and the quality of her statement, that put tremendous, enormous political pressure on President Obama.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I think that maybe we can sum this up now. I know I mentioned earlier Britt Hume, political analyst for Fox, and Joe Trippi, former campaign manager of the Howard Dean campaign for presidency. Both men essentially said after the debate that they felt it was essentially a draw. They said that they don't think it's going to change the momentum of the campaign right now, which is in Governor Romney's favor. We've told our viewers what was said in the Frank Luntz focus group. What's your total takeaway after tonight? What do you think?
Yeah, my total takeaway is net win for Governor Romney for the reason that we said. I think the more that we see in this campaign, the more, in my personal opinion, the impression gets laid down of, President Obama, hope and change didn't work. He's looking more and more like just another politician. I think that Hillary Clinton looks like a leader, and President Obama looks like just another politician. I think that there's questions that have been raised, in my personal opinion, perhaps, of the performance of this administration, and maybe now of the forthrightness and the veracity to the American people, at least in regards to this Libya situation. And I think when you look at, Fast and Furious, when you look at the economic issues, when you look at what's going on with Iran, what's going on with our relationship with Israel, what's going on with what happened in Libya, and you can continue to go on and on and on. I think that, the grand paradigm, the overarching theme, if you will, I think it continues to unfold of people are not happy with the direction and the state of affairs of the last 4 years. I don't think they're happy with that, and I think that regardless of whatever political points get scored or likability, I think people or open to a change. And I think Governor Mitt Romney continues to show himself as a very viable option and someone who is prepared and someone that has a plan and it continues to get unfolded. And I think the more we see a comparison on that level, regardless of stylistic points, regardless of fancy ads, regardless of how you're sitting or smiling or whatever else, or this scoring this debate point or that debate point, I think that overall impression, and the American people, I believe, are very smart. I think that they can see it, they can hear it, they can judge for themselves. I think that the more that we see President Obama and Governor Romney together, I think they're seeing that, you know what, I'm not happy with where things are at. I'm not happy with how it's gone the last 4 years. This person over here seems to have a good plan how to make it better, and I think that Governor Romney is winning that comparison.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you made. I agree with that. And again, I think that might be what we're seeing with some of those uncommitted, undecided voters in the focus group immediately following the debate. I think that we might be seeing exactly what you said, which is, you know what, getting used to Governor Romney. I've seen him. He's the same person day in, day out. And I think that this election is going to be a referendum on President Obama, which of course makes sense. He's had 4 years, and you look at where things are at. I think the election is going to be about the economy. And so you have Mitt Romney up there saying, look, I'm a businessman. I know how to create jobs. I want to create jobs. And then he's bringing up points like President Obama said he was going to do immigration reform in the first year. That hasn't happened. So I think this is an election about jobs. I think that is in Governor Romney's favor. And even on some of the social issues like immigration, Governor Romney's bringing up good points. Hey, look, this guy, he said he was going to do something and it didn't happen. So I agree with you. I think tonight was essentially a tie. But as I said in the Joe Biden-Paul Ryan debate analysis that we did, the tie goes to the challenger when you are taking on an incumbent with a record such as it is, or in a situation such as the United States is in terms of unemployment, gas prices, et cetera. So that's our wrap up for this. We want to hear what you guys have to say out there. What did you see tonight? Who do you think won? What were the crucial points? Tell us what you heard in terms of reaction to this. I think John wants to say something else.
Yeah, sorry. I have one thing I want to wrap up with, and that's in terms, because, people might say, oh, you guys are conservatives. Of course, you're going to like Governor Romney, whatever. Listen, in my personal opinion, we're trying to be as fair and as objective as possible. Of course, we have our point of view and our bias, like everyone, we're human like everybody else, right? Okay, fine. But here's I think, a way to think about it and maybe a way to measure it for people at home so they can sort of, and I would ask you this. When you think of any, if you're not personal opinion, if you're President Obama and you're in that campaign team, maybe you're not unhappy, but I don't know that you'd be tremendously. What do you walk away from this debate that you're saying, oh, hey, that's great, we're really happy about this, versus Governor Romney? Let me make a more finer point on that, try to give you a sort of a tool to analyze this from. What can you think of in this debate where Governor Romney made a big error, a big gaffe, something that you can kind of talk about and hit him on the next couple of days forward, the next week forward if you're the Obama campaign? I can't think of any. Maybe I'm forgetting something, maybe there's something there, but I can't think of anything. Versus you flip it the other way, I can think of, certainly on the Libya thing, as I guess Paul was saying, has already been done, but I can think of a number of points where the Romney campaign can say, hey, President Obama said this, but then the record's really this, or we say this, or in other words, I think that President Obama gave the Romney campaign many opportunities based upon what President Obama said tonight, and that's what I'm saying. I can think of situations where President Obama created issues, in my personal opinion, for his campaign, or opportunities for the Romney campaign based upon tonight, let alone everything else with it. Let me put it another way. if you look at the news media or supporters of President Obama, I think that one of the telltale signs, in my personal opinion, is they might say things of, oh, hey, President Obama looked presidential, and he looked strong, and he looked like he was in command.
Right.
All these are stylistic points. Yeah. Stylistic points. So it's not substance. But I think when people talk, when people from the Romney campaign or people that might support Governor Romney or think that he wants, think they're going to point to certain specifics, certain facts or policies that were discussed. And I think that's a good way to see or know or judge, who may have won. Because again, I believe that the American people are very intelligent and they can judge these things. And that, I would say, is a takeaway and maybe something to look at.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I'll say this. I agree with John in terms of there are two national polls, Gallup and another poll, which I don't remember right now, and each of them have Governor Romney leading President Obama 50-46 among likely voters. And just to go off of what John said, I do not think you will make up a gap of 4 points based on stylistic success, so to speak. And I agree also with what he said about, I think there are more clips, more moments of this debate that can be used as campaign ad fodder by Governor Romney than will be the case for President Obama. I think those are very good points. We love talking to you guys about this stuff. We are going to hear what you have to say. We'll look for those comments. This is Paul F. Villarreal, and I'm with JDV, John D. Villarreal, the political expert, as he is en route after watching the debate, I believe, in Miami. So hit us up. Tell us what you think. We want to know what's going on. Of course, come and join the Conservative New Media Facebook group, which is over 2,000 members and growing constantly. We will put a link to that in the video description below the video player. We'll include some other links about the debate and what their reactions were also in the video description. So we're signing off for now, and we will talk to you soon.